Jeff, we've gotten to the tail end of our work with the story engine cards and the story that you've developed. How can we take it to the finish line? I know we weren't exactly sure certain details, but we've fleshed out a lot of interesting options here.
Right. To follow this this trajectory, which is basically, we're working with several of the 7 tools that I teach, including the 36 dramatic situations and the Enneagram, but the main one we're focusing on here is dilemma, which consists of dilemma, crisis, decision and action, and resolution. So we've really solidified a dilemma to the degree that we can. We have some good, strong possibilities for Enneagram types, which will inform the story more as the story progresses. The thing that I would do now is focus on crisis, which is the dilemma come to a head, come to a make or break point, decision and action in the face of crisis, and then the resolution of the dilemma. And once we have that, then we've completed one pass through one aspect of creating this story by focusing mostly on dilemma, which is the way I start any story. I kind of grab the story and look at it through the lens of dilemma, because the protagonist caught in a good, strong dilemma amplifies the dramatic power of the story. It really helps imbue the story with dramatic intensity right from the beginning of creating it, so that you're building drama into the story from the beginning of the process, rather than inventing a story and then trying to retrofit dramatic tension into it. So it's sort of dyed in the wool. So the next step would be to focus on the way in which this dilemma comes to a critical juncture around the end of Act 2. And because we've only got a tentative but pretty solid statement of dilemma, we've got a sense of personality types. The thing to do would be to focus on dilemma, and we don't have to, we're not going to solve it comprehensively, because the dilemma is still tentative and fluid. But we want to bring crisis up to the level that we have the dilemma at this point. So in this type of story, what we're saying is that, so if I'm this robot, which is one of the ways I deal with dilemma, is I put myself in the position of the protagonist, and it's unacceptable to do these morally reprehensible things that the son is pushing me to participate in. It's kind of like the son needs me to actuate it. Otherwise, he'd just go do it himself. Why would I be in the middle of the mix? Probably because I'm wired into the whole factory and that kind of thing. So he needs me to execute or to help execute. Probably because I can do so many functions at once. He could do 5 of them. I can do 40 billion in a second. It might take him all day to do 5 of them. So I'm required. So it's unacceptable to participate in this morally reprehensible thing that my ethics programming kind of forbids me from doing. And yet as a loyalist, as a type 6 potentially, a loyalist isn't all about giving loyalty to someone else. They're also looking for loyalty. But the type 6 is, one of the most basic things about a type 6 is that they're contradictory. They can be both selfless and selfish. They can be, generous and stingy. They can be active and passive. There's all these different opposites that they can embody in one person. So if I'm this like sentient robot of some kind, not necessarily sentient, but a high-level AI, I can't participate in these morally reprehensible things. And yet, I can't let go of what the sun is offering me, which is a chance to be human. And I also have a need to like be loyal. Type 6s can be like blindly loyal. They're always questioning, but once they get beyond their questioning and they really become loyal to something, they're also the type that can go down with the ship. They have trouble, even if they see they're wrong, they're like, I'm all in anyway. So I can't contribute to the morally reprehensible stuff, but I can't let go of this opportunity to become human. And I'm like sort of naturally wired to defend the organization that I'm part of. And I'm starving to be human. So, and there's this thing being put in motion where this company, not just a company, this massive corporation that's probably similar to the Tyrell Corporation, potentially in certain ways, somewhere around the end of Act 2, it's about to be launched. And this robot has to, well, the robot is still wrestling with the dilemma, really enjoying the perks of kind of giddy humanness, going to the beach, like doing stuff he never did before. And that presumes there's like a humanoid type body, but that it could still be a robot, but could go surfing. Girls are interested, can eat a hot dog, can get sunburned, but it's still a robot, but it's more, it's like Spock on catnip or whatever. And if the operating system is being corrupted, then at the point of crisis, the inner facilities of this automaton are compromised to a dangerous level, so that right when this automaton needs his faculties the most, and it could totally be a she, any of these, it could all be women, it could all be anything. All of the faculties that are needed most are the ones that are most missing at this crucial juncture. And see, one of the things about a crisis is that it's often the worst possible things happening at the worst possible moment. And one of the aspects of the worst possible things happening at the worst possible moment can be that you're right on the very precipice of total success. Like, why is everything falling apart? I'm an inch away from, I'm doing it. It's working, I'm pulling it off, and it's all going to hell right on the edge of success. That can be a crisis. So the emerging humanoid aspects in the personality of this automaton, it can be like, it just got a girlfriend. It's like, and it's going on a certain, it's like why now? They really think I'm human, and I feel like I'm human, and it's working, and she likes me, and I'm a good surfer, and it's like, it's way worse to give that up now than it was 20 minutes earlier in the plot. Because I'm addicted to being a person, and it's working, or it's right on the edge of working. It might be that the sun has to, I got to adjust you a little bit more, and then you won't even remember you used to be a robot. You'll really think you're this person and all that type of stuff. And he's like, yes, I got to have that. And right at that point is when things come to a head. Okay, we're launching tonight. Something happened. We're moving the launch date up. So right now. And we were also talking about how if the automaton in seeking guidance, because the giddiness of being human is really intoxicating and like addicting, but the kind of smoke alarm that's going off in the brain of this automaton, like, you're going to kill 1 billion people, like, wake up. What is going on? Like, this is wrong. Like, that's screaming in there too. And that's like the dilemma that this character has been wrestling with throughout Act 2. And as part of that, if he's reanimated the father who created this whole company, and the father is like able to give him words of wisdom and encouragement, then that can be helping him. And it's possible that at the point of crisis, I first thought that the son could kind of pull the plug on this reanimation, even if it's just an AI, that he's brought to a level of fruition that he can communicate with it. So have an intelligent, so like he's upgraded the AI aspects of the deceased father so that it emulates his personality enough that he can have like a real conversation with who that person really was for him. And like you can really, you can make a decision, and you're not weak, and you're a good person. You know, it's saying all these things. At first I thought the son might come along and kill the father again if he's the one that killed the father earlier on. But it could even be worse than that. Like, what if the son hears him getting words of wisdom from the father, and the son starts laughing and like, you fell for all that crap. And he like hits a button so that like the real father comes out, and the real father could be a treacherous, malignant monster, just like the son. And that's like who he really is. It's just the disguise has come off, so that for this poor robot who's desperately struggling to navigate the demands of his ethics, his moral compass, and his incredible hunger to be human and to be loyal. And at that point, he finds out that the founding father really was a like sadistically vicious, horrible creature. And that's why the son turned out that way, even though he's great at, hey, he's like everybody's best friend, but he's like this treacherous monster. For that to hit this automaton right at the worst possible moment, then you not only have the kind of mental breakdown going on inside the robot as the faculties that he needs the most at this moment are being corroded by the sun as the operating system is corrupted more and more, but that the one person who is a shining light and a source of belief and faith and everything is revealed to be by far the worst monster in this entire universe. It's such a crushing shock. It's like a backbreaking, taking away the one hope he had at the worst possible moment and taking it away in the worst possible way. Like, you know, the father ends up laughing at him like, you fell for all this shit. You're such a loser. You don't know anything. You know, and we made you like that. You're a manipulable little tin robot that does what we tell you and is very happy about it, loves everybody. You know, it's like, you know, and like, you're trash. You served your function. Thank you. Like, get out. Which is the kinsman slain unrecognized. And discovery of the dishonor of a loved one, and disaster and madness. All of those things are constituting, those are some of the situations that are very active at the point of crisis. And so it's like, you know, the rug isn't just jerked out from under this robot at this key point, but There's not even a floor anymore. He's like in free fall. But he's got to make a decision about this world crisis that's in the throes of, it's happening now. And maybe part of him is actuating it now, like performing the computations like he's been ordered, because he is just a robot or a puppet. And yet part of him is like screaming to try and stop it. And so the decision in action is going to be something like this robot makes a key decision that he's going to try to stop this and takes an action. Just a decision is nothing. That's just like, okay, I'll do that. But you could still be laying in bed saying that. It's getting up and taking action. So it's decision and action in the face of crisis. And the decision and action are two sides of the same coin. It's one thing. Like you see your kid about to get hit by a truck, you're not going, I better. It's like you're already through the window before you even have a chance to think about it. You know, like you're throwing the frying pan and the stool right through the window and you're getting cut to shit and flying out there to rescue your kid. It's a decision and action in the face of crisis. So for this robot to take some kind of stand to try to stop this thing, which is already in progress and looks like it's going to win. And the robot may not be able to stop its own processes, but it's going to try to throw a monkey wrench in there. In fact, the action would be to throw a monkey wrench in there, which may or may not win, but is no longer paralyzed, like, what am I going to do when I have to make a choice? Now, I've made a choice and I'm going to war. And it's the opening salvo in the fight to the finish. And it's an attempt, generally, the beginning of the fight to the finish is an honest attempt at a killing blow. Like, it's not like I'm going to punch you and then we're going to punch a whole bunch more. Like, I'm going to hit you so hard that you die on impact. That's the intent of the beginning of the fight to the finish by the protagonist. A very strong action that could win, but you have a very powerful antagonist, so you're evenly matched. So from there on out, it's really a fight to the finish between the son and possibly the AI of the father and this robot over the fate of the world. And if the robot conclusively resolves his dilemma, which is the resolution, in the end, and is kind of a desperate attempt at sabotage to try to stop them, then the robot probably has to grow a lot to be able to conclusively resolve that dilemma. This is like a desperate action and an emergency, and this is more like a comprehensive, massive victory that isn't going to backslide. If he beats them, they're done. They're gone. They might be both dead or they might be killed by the virus that they were going to. But whatever it is, he's really won. And he might still be a surfer on the beach at the end. You never know. But so there's going to have to be, you know, it's the completion of the character arc. And a real fight to the finish. And because the antagonist is extremely powerful, then it's not a walk in the park at all to get from the point of decision and action to the point of resolution. This is a declaration of war, and it could easily be a catastrophic loss for the automaton. But the automaton is growing, changing, and maybe even still feeding on the original words of the founding father when the AI said, you can do it. You're a good creature. You're stronger than you know. Have trust in yourself. Those might still be guiding words that help the robot grow enough to defeat their treachery and their power Because even if the robot has a great victory 5 minutes after the decision and action in the face of crisis, the son and possibly the AI or the father may, outweigh that with a really treacherous, powerful act. And like now our automaton is seriously getting his butt kicked. And like it's the back and forth as the automaton grows in capability, confidence, and even sense of humanity. Like a real conscience, a real ability to see that that's wrong, and I don't need my computer to be going, this is 72% this way, this is 19. It's like, no, that's fucking wrong. And there's no it's just clear. So that the resolution, if the automaton wins in the end, this automaton is using some of the strengths of the villain and of the corporation and probably humans that work in there that he has turned into allies, like you and whose army. It needs to be like wickedly smart, incredibly forceful, no half measures, and, crushing truly treacherous lunatics who will stop at nothing and who are immensely powerful. So the weak little automaton that was like disabled by the sun and wondering about things when it never used to, is now going to be, by the end, a massively powerful warrior who's self-confident, can make decisions, has a good, strong sense of ethics, but will also burn this whole factory down. And if a couple hundred workers die in that, it's going to save billions and prevent this great evil from coming out. So capable of making hard choices, great strength of character, insight, learned deviousness, learns how to fight dirty, all of that, whatever it takes to conclusively resolve the dilemma that was paralyzing him earlier on, so that he's a completely different character at the end than he was, for a big chunk of his dilemma. Then you have a powerful, dynamic ending. And it's possible he even converts the virus that was going to kill 1 billion people into, a vaccine that, ends, something on the earth. So that because it was already too late to stop the distribution of it, but he can affect the chemistry of it as it's being distributed so that it's actually ultra healthy for the people that take it rather than they're going to die in 19 hours or something like that. Or it could, it could be a permanent cure for smallpox, or some of those things are already cured, but it could be something like that. And maybe the assistant of the son, maybe when the son said, look, when I do this last step to you, you really will be a human. Maybe the assistant of the son is able to do that step to him, so that we see him on the beach, and he'd still be this person of great power. I don't think you want to lose that, but it would be like seeing some really smart, powerful person on the beach just hanging out, having fun. So that you could see how that could be one powerful resolution to this story, and a conclusive defeat of the son and the father's AI, and a prevention of this great catastrophe and the destruction of this power grab. And once you can isolate and articulate the resolution, which we've only partially articulated at this point, it's pretty tentative and flexible and fluid, but we can see it, and you can see what it is. So that enables you to see the theme of the story. And the best way to isolate and articulate theme is to look at the resolution and to look at the way in which the protagonist resolves the dilemma. So it's not what happens, but the way in which the protagonist does it. Because there you have the completion of the transformation of this character. And so this person who used to not trust their own decision-making process and need guidance from others and be unsure and suspicious is now like, I know what to do. And I'm, unilaterally making all these decisions, and I'm using my power. And it's just like he might even be hearing the father's voice, the untrue voice of the father, but it's still true for him. You are a good creature. Use your power. Don't let anybody tell you what to do. You don't need me to tell you what to do. So that he's like, he's like coming into power. And if you look at the way in which he resolves the dilemma, you see that tremendous growth of power and confidence and capability. And that's what the story's about thematically. You can look right there, there's the theme. And the thing about working with theme in this way is that you will have like a heart or gut level understanding of it, like you get it, even if you can't articulate it right away. And that's a really great place to be, because you really comprehend the theme. And the words, you don't necessarily have the words to be able to articulate it clearly yet, but that's okay. Because look at what the audience, when the audience sees that movie and they walk out of the theater and they feel that greatness of heart that this character imbued in them, that they're taking the theme home with them. They've got it. They feel that greatness of heart. And that's what the writer created, that crafted that. The final effect is the principal effect. The ending is where the power of the whole film comes together. It's like cracking a whip. The tail end of it breaks the speed of sound, and that's what the sound is. And it's like being on a chain with skaters, and everybody's holding hands, and the last person gets whipped way out ahead. The power of the whole story is wrapped up and delivered through the ending. So you're sculpting the mood that the audience goes home in. And they take the theme home with them. And if you do it powerfully enough, you change their lives. They never look at the world the same after that. That greatness of heart that they got from this story, they can always go back to that. And it's very powerful. And like, I remember when I saw Braveheart and I felt like that at the end, even though it was a weird, sad ending, I felt that greatness of heart of Wallace. And I'm actually reading Andrew Carnegie's autobiography now, and he's Scottish and grew up in Scotland. And he said they grew up on Wallace. Wallace, Robert the Bruce, who became king later, and one other guy. And they said, for a Scottish kid, he was our hero. And we were like, Wallace wouldn't have stood down now. Like they become indomitable. And it like impacted their life. For the rest of his life, he was always like Wallace, Bruce, and whoever the other guy was, I can't remember. But like you can really like shape somebody's approach to life. Like I still remember when I saw the end of Blade Runner. It impacted me, and it still does. And great movies with great endings can really like permanently change how an audience thinks. And they do that to varying degrees, all the way from 0 to 100%. Like 100% is like you never look at the world in the way you used to again. And then, of course, a lot of it is just like you feel amazing for a couple days, or you feel beat up because it was a rough ending, but you learned something from it. But it's the ambition of a writer is to permanently change how people think. And you just look at the resolution and look at the way in which the protagonist resolves the dilemma. That's the theme. Look at Training Day. The way in which Jake resolves his dilemma is to absolutely stand for his principles. Antoine Fuqua, the director, and David Ayers, the writer, both said Training Day is about what if one man says no. And it's Jake's absolute ferocity. I will not stop. I will not go away. You're not getting away with this, no matter what. That's what that movie's about thematically. You can feel that coming out of the theater. That's in you. So that's like a quick run through really dilemma, crisis, decision and action and resolution. But because different Enneagram types will react to a dilemma in different ways, that helps a lot. And you can see how the 36 dramatic situations it was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Like I could see some elements, and you throw ambition and madness and conflict with a god and rivalry of superior and inferior and the necessity of sacrificing loved ones. And, all those types of things gave us ideas to create the story. It's just it's a brainstorming tool. It's suggestive possibilities. It triggers possibilities. And there's obviously a whole bunch more tools. I have 7 tools altogether, but this is a good look at the main thing I'm doing here is as I start with a raw idea, I go right to dilemma. And it's almost like the image of like, you might see like somebody in Africa carving a drum, and they're like working on the drum, but they're with their feet, they're holding the bottom of this thing that's going to become a drum, and they clamp it in. And like I'm clamping onto dilemma as I wrestle with the story. So it's all about the protagonist's dilemma as I invent the story. I'm focused on dilemma as I build the story. And that's a really fundamental skill in using this tool. And that dilemma is 2 equally unacceptable alternatives, 2 equally painful choices. And it really does that Robbie the robot, like the person is paralyzed between these 2 equally unacceptable alternatives. For the whole second act, the paralysis is broken at the point of crisis. But it's not until another 10 or 15 minutes of movie at the resolution of the dilemma that the dilemma is conclusively resolved. And so it constitutes 3/4 or more of the story and occupies the full proportion of the story. It's not a little thing. It's not a minor problem that crops up. So yeah, it's a real process that is extremely helpful in essentially turning story into drama. Because if it's just story, then it's mere information and it's not always as gripping as it could be. And a good, strong dilemma can turn a good story into a great drama in any genre. Like you look at like Liar, Liar with Jim Carrey. It's a fun, whacked out comedy, but it has a dilemma of magnitude. There's substance to it. Tootsie is a fun comedy, but there's a lot of substance and depth and a good, strong dilemma. So it can work in any genre, and obviously if it's a completely whacked out comedy, then there'll be less magnitude and more fun. So it's obviously, you have a sense of how much of it you need for a particular type of story. But the more familiar with it, the more you understand the underlying principles behind what makes the tool work, then you can adjust the tool as needed for each specific type of script that has different demands and different tone and different intensity and different impact on the audience.
Jeff, you've provided such valuable information today, and I love the way you question different story points. If someone wants to work with you, what's the best way they can find your teachings, become a student of yours?
Well, I have a couple different things. I have a book, Writing a Great Movie, which will walk you through all this, and I build a real script in the second half. I have a 3-month pre-recorded training program where we build a real script in 3 months, and you work along with me helping build the script and solving the different puzzles involved as we build it. That's 65 hours of pre-recorded video. And then I have a 2-year live training program where we work 5 days a week, about 2.5 hours a day. And that 3 months is the first part of that. So you can get live intensive training for 2 years. And then we have a subscription service where you can sign up and pay a certain amount each month and have ongoing access to live classes every week, pre-recorded trainings, writings, and so on, that kind of thing.
We can have a link below as well for
Yes.
viewers to click on. So if I want to take a class, can I just choose which one? Or is there a prerequisite before taking some?
You can choose which one, but for the 2-year, the first part of that is the 3-month pre-recorded. That's called Course 1, because Course 2 is continuously ongoing. So like there's someone who just finished Course 1 yesterday who will be joining Course 2, and we're halfway through writing a romantic comedy. So because he's built a whole thriller with me in Course 1, he's conversant with the tools, wrote the script based on the outline that we created together. So he can jump right in, and he has to learn about this particular story, but he's fluent enough with the tools that he can just jump right in and not be going, wait, what are you guys talking about? He's like, yeah, I know my way around. And so it's designed so that Course 1 sets you up to jump right into Course 2 at any time. And then I do private consulting as well, which anybody can get hold of me at SCRIPT.KITCHEN, just Jeff@SCRIPT.KITCHEN. There's no .com, it's .kitchen, SCRIPT.KITCHEN.
Are most of your students working adults taking this in addition to their 40-hour week job?
Some are retired. They have more time. But it's all across the board, and one of them's 15 living in Romania. They're like all over the world and all different stages. You know, it's a commitment of time, and I'm not working with any of my individual students' own screenplays because that's too complicated. But we're all working together to build a script, and they're getting extensive hands-on experience using all the tools in a collaborative way. And then once they've been in Course 2 for long enough to feel like they really have a handle on the tools, then they build their own script in front of the group to make sure that they can really do this stuff themselves. And we come by every few days to check in on how they're doing, and they might want us to brainstorm with them, or they might want to do it themselves. I'd be like looking at what they're doing. What did you just solve? Having them articulate their thought process, correcting them if they're doing something technically slightly wrong, just to make sure that they really can do this on their own, and that then they'll be extremely skilled, seasoned, and versatile as dramatists. And you could throw them a comedy, a horror story, a sports drama, anything, and they know how to grapple with it, make it work dramatically, think through the deep aspects of the story, dimensionalize it, build the characters, make it fresh and different and not predictable and cliche. I'm teaching some very powerful tools and rigorous technique, but I'm always emphasizing you gotta have a real sense of adventure. It's storytelling. And the more craft you have, the less you have to make safe choices. People make safe choices as writers because they don't have the technique to make a complex choice and make that work. So they make a safe choice because they know they can make that work. But I really teach reckless abandon, like explosive creativity, and like get yourself in trouble. If you're not in over your head, you're not doing your job right. People don't want to see the same lukewarm story trotted out again. They want to see something where they're going, what was that? And like, what just happened? And where is it going now? That's the fun of being a writer. And and the other thing is that there's these 7 tools, but fully half of what I'm teaching is just pure seat of the pants storytelling. You're just making stuff up. And that's huge. The tools are just a part of that, and they can shape some of your processes and make the things you choose work better and more dramatic and more compelling and good tight cause and effect so it moves well without being bogged down by unnecessary stuff. But if your story is bland and predictable, then you can just end up with well-structured crap. So mere technique is not enough. You really need explosive creativity and reckless abandon and just the refusal to make safe choices and the refusal to knuckle under to cliche and all that type of stuff. So it's part wild animal and it's part like domesticated animal where you really can make concise, rigorous choices and technique. But the thing that you're applying that to is, like a 30-foot gorilla that'll rip your arms off in a second. You're working hard to make the tools go to that. The story is the master. You're just the person who's trying to make it work dramatically so it can be stage-worthy on TV, on film, and theater.